Galleries, caps, and films. Turns out art in the Wasteland is a dangerous hobby. Warning, this video contains details of graphic nature. Please continue at your own risk. I have warned you. Now I, like many others, am guilty to listening to stories of serial killers. Call it morbid curiosity, fascination with the macabre, or just being a little bit of a weirdo. In a post-war Fallout universe, serial killers are most likely a dime a dozen. After all, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, you only need 2 kills in separate events to be considered a serial killer. And in a lawless wasteland, murder's almost a currency. That doesn't mean, however, there aren't people in Fallout making killing an art form. One, almost literally. Let's dive into a couple of these killers and delve into the very worst of what the Wasteland has to offer. Our first stop is the Mojave Wasteland. In the home of the Emerters, the Gomorrah Casino. You'll meet our subject after you start looking for some missing call girls for the character Joanna during the quest How Little We Know. But let's all be honest, we don't do that quest to help people. We do it for that sweet, sweet Pimp Boy 3 billion. After talking to low-level Emerter Lieutenant Kachino, you'll be directed to set your grubby little investigative mitts on the hired Merc Clandon, who's living up in the Gomorrah Suites. You'll soon find out after pressing him for information. The Clandon's actually an explosives expert who's been hired by Caesar to create a distraction upon the Strip, so the NCR's attention is taken away from Hoover Dam while the Legion attacks. He seems pretty innocuous for a Merc in the Mojave. Clean, nice, not massively threatening. Kachino even describes him as like a pope, as he seems to have no vices, rejecting offers of gambling or sampling the Gomorrah girls. However, if you poke around his suites, you'll find evidence of a more nefarious hobby of Clandon's. In the kitchen, you'll find clear signs of a struggle. Bloody handprints, pools of blood, and bloody tracks upon the carpet. In a maintenance closet down the hall, you'll find the body of one of Joanna's friends, and with a medicine of 35 or over, you'll discover that the body's no more than a day old. And, most incriminatingly, if you look behind a dresser in Clandon's room, you'll find a safe, containing his prized snuff tapes. When threatened with his own product, you can convince Clandon to leave, or you could ensure he never makes another tape again. In some cut content, you could actually hand in these tapes to the NCR and get him arrested, but that was rejected in favour of letting the courier take his fate into their own hands. Next, we move over to Boston, to a killer that we only meet through terminals. The Nuka Killer is a pre-war predator, terrorising the greater Boston area before the bombs fell. The investigation is headed by Federal Officer A. Jeanette and Sheriff Taylor, and all of the information that we have on this killer is contained in 3 logs on 3 different terminals. 1 for victim Gonzalez at the Nuntuck Sheriff's Department, 1 for victim Yavitz at the East Boston Police Station, and 1 for victim Ensign Wright at the Coast Guard Pier. All 3 men were found soaking wet, with Nuka-Cola caps placed over their eyelids, giving inspiration to the killer's name. And this is all the information that we have on the killer, as presumably they were either taken out when the bombs fell or long dead by the events of Fallout 4. We can assume from how the bodies were found that the killings were probably inspired by old burial rituals. For centuries, coins were placed on the eyelids of the deceased to stop them from protracting as rigor mortis set in. In ancient Greece, these coins, or obol, typically placed in the mouth of the deceased, were left as a payment for the ferryman of the underworld Charon. No, not that Charon. The bodies being waterlogged could also link to the ferryman theory that maybe the killer was leaving them for him. But with only 3 logs in 200 years since the killings happened, we'll never know the motives of the serial killer. For our final stop on this morbid tour, we're staying in the Boston area, but moving it forward a couple of 100 years to probably the most well-known serial killer on this list, the infamous artist Pickman. There are several ways to become aware of Pickman on your explorations, whether this is via a quest from Hancock, finding his calling card on a raider's corpse, or stumbling across his gallery organically whilst exploring the North End area, near Diamond City and Goodneighbor. He features in 2 quests which run concurrently, Art Appreciation and Pickman's Gift. And regardless of if you save him from the raiders enacting their revenge upon him, you can come out with his weapon of choice, the unique combat knife Pickman's Blade. Pickman's main victims are raiders, which could make you consider him a goal-oriented killer, but with what he does to the bodies after, I would argue that he's actually a product killer. In his gallery, you'll find several haunting paintings of twisted figures, fire, eyes, and reaching hands containing a colour palette of only red, yellow, and black. He's clearly using his kills as his materials. The inspiration behind his character in the game comes from the twisted mind of racist cat namer H.P. Lovecraft and his story Pickman's Model, in which Bostonian artist Richard Upton Pickman is ostracized by his peers for his art containing eldritch beings that only he can see. Lovecraft features heavily in some of the more terrifying and fantastical stories to come out of the Wasteland, and even the Elder Scrolls series. I'm looking at you, Hermaeus Mora, but that's a story for another time. I'm going to leave this video here, but know that I am barely scraping the top of the barrel for some of the more twisted minds in the Wasteland. Drop a comment if there are any killers in particular that you want me to look into, and I'll see you next time.